Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome along to Weathering the Storm. Fantastic to have you all here today. My name is Jeremy Carter, and can I just ask people to keep their phones muted if they're not talking as part of the presentation. This afternoon's webinar will go for 1 hour, and we've got some fantastic guest presenters and facilitators and a whole range of questions which have been put to us by local business owners. This is an initiative of the Blacktown City Council in partnership with the Hills Council, Penrith City Council, and also the Cumberland City Council. I'll be facilitating the expert panel today. My name is Jeremy Carter, and I've been working with the Hills Shire Council for a couple of years and also the Blacktown City Council on doing their business education programs. I've worked as a business coach for the last 15 years and was really excited to be asked to be able to moderate the panel here today. And we've got some amazing people who I'll introduce in just a moment. I think it's quite interesting that the Department of Education, Skills and Employment has just released a report on the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on Australian business. And some of the things that the survey found, over 250, was that almost 60% of businesses have been affected to a great deal. There's been a significant reduction in demand for goods and services. And of course, when you do this and are carrying fixed costs, this leads to cash flow issues. COVID-19's led to businesses really having to change some of their thinking, their business practices, having people working from home. And we've seen a lot of businesses actually reduce those costs through reducing staff, either laying staff off or finding some of the options and looking at some of the great incentives that the government has really put to be able to support local business. This report is one that's going to be kept up to date, and I've just put a link on the site there if you're interested in more information. So excited to be able to introduce our panel today, specifically on the area of hospitality. Firstly, I'll introduce David Somerville, who's the Head of Economic Development at Blacktown City Council. He heads the Economic Development Strategy, which is focused on small business facilitation, international trade and the growing of the advanced manufacturing sector. Blacktown City Council collaborates with a wide range of business associations, state and federal agencies, and David's work very much revolves around connecting these businesses and responding to their needs. David was the one who's been fundamental in bringing together all the councils to make this webinar series happen. So welcome, David.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Brilliant. Next, I'd like to introduce Anthony De Cruz, who's the Regional Engagement Manager for Service New South Wales for Business. And Anthony joined Service New South Wales in 2016 in the newly created Making Business Easier project team. Anthony was responsible for setting up the now successful business concierge service within Service New South Wales for Business. His key focus is making starting and running a business more accessible, including initiatives like business guides and the free dedicated business concierge service. Prior to joining Service New South Wales, Anthony actually worked in investment banking and the wealth management sector. Welcome, Anthony.
Thank you. And also, I would like to introduce Macrina, who is my colleague, who's also on the panel, but unfortunately, because of changes, she has just come in today into the system. So welcome, Macrina. She's also part of the engagement team and is actually my boss.
That's fantastic. Next, I'd like to introduce Michael Johnson, who's the CEO of Tourism Accommodation Australia, both national and New South Wales. Tourism Accommodation Australia is a division of the Australian Hotels Association. As CEO of Tourism Accommodation Australia, Michael has over 3 decades of experience managing 4- and 5-star business hotels, resorts and tourist attractions across Australia and New Zealand. I'm sure Michael will bring us some insights today into all facets of the tourism accommodation industry, which has really severely been impacted by COVID-19, from operations to senior management. Michael is a natural ambassador of the hotel industry and is committed to encouraging the next generations to try their hand at building a successful career within the industry, something he himself has found extremely rewarding. Welcome along today, Michael.
Thanks, Jeremy. Nice to be here.
Ben Lees is currently a Principal Advisor to the New South Wales Small Business Commissioner. Ben ran the New South Wales Small Business Friendly Councils program and has recently been taking a lead role in supporting small businesses through disasters, including the drought and summer bushfires. Ben comes from a family of small business owners and has a background in food safety regulation and public health. Welcome, Ben.
Thanks, Jeremy, and hello all.
And Marian Fitzpatrick is the head of the skills team, specifically for tourism and experience services at TAFE New South Wales. She has over 24 years experience, including being the hotel school trainer for intercontinental hotels and resorts and chef de cuisine at the Treasury Restaurant. Marian has been the international expert cooking for Work Skills Australia, as well as the national competition jury president and chief judge mentor. At TAFE, she's held a wide range of roles, including college manager, campus manager, faculty director, and most recently is the head of the skills team, tourism and experience services, and deputy general manager for the Western Sydney region. Welcome along, Marian.
Thank you, Jeremy, and hello, everybody.
Terrific to have you all here today, and Marian, particularly impressed at how TAFE New South Wales has stepped up to the crisis to actually recognise education as being something as truly important. And they've actually made a range of courses available free online, and I'm sure you're going to be able to talk to us about that today. But I wanted to start with an opening question for each one of the panellists. In light of COVID-19, what should business owners be doing or thinking about right now to give themselves the best chance of survival or business success moving forward? Well, I might start with you, Marian.
Okay, lucky first. Look, turning a crisis into an opportunity, I think that's really what we've got to do as an industry. And, you know, we've survived the droughts, the bushfires, the floods, and now a pandemic. So without a doubt, the depth and breadth of the industry has been affected. And as you said, Jeremy, you know, TAFE is a business as well. We have been affected by this. We've had to dust ourselves off. In Western Sydney region alone, we've got 21 delivery points, 14 LGAs, 90,000 students or customers, as we call them. And we've had to change our own business models. So 9,000 teachers have had to change the way they deliver the training and the skills development for the industry sector here in TAFE New South Wales. So it has been significant for us, and we've had to review our business model. And again, that is the takeaway for small business out there, and definitely the hospitality sector. Business owners potentially need to look at the currency and the skills and the training needs of yourselves as employers, and also for your employees, and potentially looking at training and skills development as part of that plan to support your economic and your business recovery post-COVID. What we've got to acknowledge as well is that, you know, every business will recover potentially at a different rate, and those that are relying on a more domestic market, such as the food sector and the hospitality sector, we may recover at a different rate and a more speedy rate. As Jeremy, you did say, we have the 21 courses, short courses, which we've released in TAFE. Demand has been huge, 75,000 enrolments in those courses in 2 weeks. So that has been significant. So, you know, looking at the you know, for a business now, if you could take a look and a stock take on what skills you feel will help you as part of that recovery plan. And that may be skills like digital literacy and looking at new ways of doing things moving forward. Who would have thought we would be relying on home delivery foods so much? Who would have thought we relied on boxes of ingredients to land on our doorsteps with a recipe telling us how to cook them? So every business has had to reinvent how they do things, and we as TAFE New South Wales, like yourselves, have had to rethink how we do things and get our 9,000 teachers ready in the digital space to deliver to our students. The feedback from the students, this is week one, the feedback from the students and the staff has been very positive. And, you know, for those students who potentially find it difficult and challenging, we certainly have good wraparound support services for those students. So as employers, I certainly urge you to look at what training opportunities might be out there to help you reinvent your business coming out of this.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I'll next pass to David Somerville, Economic Development, Blacktown City Council. And this webinar series was actually your brainchild. What's your thoughts on what business owners ought to be thinking about at the moment?
Thanks, Jeremy. Hello, everybody. This webinar. I've been thinking about this quite a bit, and I think I'll just provide sort of two areas where I think businesses have responded well to the pandemic in reacting positively to how they can change their business model to these difficult times. And these two areas, two examples I'll give is improving their productivity and looking at new markets. So in terms of improving productivity, I think we found that clubs and pubs and hotels have either taken one or other strategy. They've either temporarily closed or they've retained their business. So for those that have actually closed, for example, we know that they are doing deep cleaning of their kitchens and they're replacing key equipment. They're also looking at and reviewing their processes. With JobKeeper on board now, they can afford to hopefully maintain some of their staff. And for example, I know a club in Riverston that is reviewing its processes and procedures. It's looking at its membership database, updating information that it is always on their to-do list, but they've never had a time to do it. So this is a great time for them to do those sort of housekeeping matters, which can actually improve the way that they do business and be more effective in the way that they do it. The other area that's been of interest is businesses reviewing their markets and seeing what opportunities are out there to expand or exploit the stay-at-home policy that the federal government has been encouraging people to do. So, for example, we know of a pub in the Hills that has draft beer on tap, and they're encouraging customers to come in and use their drive-through facilities, and it's a sort of bring your own bottle and fill up process. So people can come in, fill up their beer bottles, and it's also an opportunity to provide a business with identifying its environmental and green credentials. So you're encouraging people to recycle disposable bottles. So I'll leave it there and listen to what our other panelists have to say on this subject. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you, David. So I might pass across to Michael next. And Michael, what are some of the things you've been seeing that's differentiating businesses right now? I'll just unmute you. There we go.
Thank you. Well, thanks, Jeremy. I think again for the hotel industry, it has been a fairly long road of with bushfires and floods, and then of course COVID-19. So we sort of saw occupancy slowly come down and down and down further. And as they've come down further, again, as not dissimilar to what David said, a lot of properties actually took the sign to say it's time to close, and so actually put those hotels into hibernation. Other hotels were prepared to sit there and wait. We were talking early in the piece to government about Medi hotels and being able to support the actual virus and our health department by actually having rooms available. And that was a really good initiative, and a lot of hotels got on board. It was really good to see that they actually said, yes, we want to help. And then, of course, and it was an overnight decision made by the Prime Minister without any discussion with industry. He made the decision that any returning Australians will have to go into isolation. So next thing you know, we had to gear up the hotels very quickly and get those lists available to the government, and they started the process. And as you know, I think we had about over 3,000 people arrive into Sydney on the Saturday. And of course there was a bit of mayhem because it was quite I think I used the word, it was a logistics challenge as opposed to saying it was a bit of a nightmare. But effectively we were able to do that. And so it meant that hotels were able to actually generate some cash flow. Now, those that stayed closed, but some were actually very quick as well to say, we would like a piece of this action, and they actually reopened and were able to actually take in some business. And it's all about, and of course the biggest issue all the hotels are suffering is cash flow. So from that perspective, I think there's been some benefit to the hotels that have been able to do that. Others that weren't so lucky obviously have gone into temporary closure. Whilst they're in temporary closure, they are doing bits and pieces, particularly there's some maintenance and again, you know, interesting, all of a sudden car parks get cleaned because there's no cars in them. So one of the interesting ones, very rare you get to see car parks get cleaned. So there's some of those roles, some deep cleaning being done. But of course now we've certainly been working in conjunction again with governments and the JobKeeper program, and that's getting rolled out as we know now. So that's going to be great, and it's going to keep people very much engaged to the hotels. But also, and if I can just pick up before on what Marian was saying with regards to TAFE New South Wales, and that's been fantastic because they've been working with our industry as well, putting together suites of courses, keep these the employees and managers in that awareness and upskilling them where they can in preparation for when we do reopen.
Thank you, Michael. And what I might actually do is open the first poll of today, asking how much has COVID-19 impacted your business revenue? And we'll come back to that a little bit later on. And let me pass now to Anthony de Cruz from Service New South Wales. Anthony, what do you believe that business owners ought to be either thinking about or focusing on right now in their businesses in light of the COVID-19?
Can I, before I answer, Macrina, would you want to take that, or you want me to?
Do it, Anthony. Oh, good.
Okay, so say again. You okay for me to?
I'm happy to jump in, but you'll be fine. Thank you.
Okay, so Jeremy, thanks for the question. One of the most important things, I suppose, for businesses now going through this, just to keep in mind, Service New South Wales should be one of the first stop for small businesses. As you know, we can provide the guidance and support that they need. We have this free personalized business concierge service, as most of you would know. What that means is that you can actually talk to a person 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. We have online access through our Service New South Wales webpage, and also the phone calls. So we are able to provide business owners with a wide range of guidance, such as understanding the support, what's out there, with the 3 tiers of government, and also to direct them to the different pages that the 3 tiers of government do have for these businesses. We can help businesses that are going through hard times now with the $10,000 grant. We can also get businesses to understand all the fee waivers that are out there, whether it be state, local, or federal. And also the changes in the commercial leasing, which is quite important these days, especially now with people struggling to pay rent. So we can even provide the guidance and links to the support that's available. The other most important thing is also we can also connect these businesses if they require advice. As you might know, because what we do, we only provide guidance and not advice. So we can actually connect these businesses through colleagues and friends at Business Connect. And that's probably most of you will know that now the fees that were being charged by Business Connect advisors have also been waived. And again, that is an easy warm transfer from our page, the businesses will come onto our page, onto the Business Connect page. So there's a lot of help that we can provide, and I would recommend businesses to actually visit our page and see what's available.
Brilliant. Thank you, Anthony. And Ben, we're very lucky to have Ben on the call with us today because he's working crazy hours attempting to keep up with a barrage of inquiries from landlords, from tenants, from small business owners, asking the Office of the Small Business Commissioner, how can you help us? Ben, welcome on the call today.
Thanks, Jeremy, and thanks all. Yeah, it's so I've been working on drought and bushfire before this, and if you've never heard of Small Business Commission before, it's because you've never been in trouble before, and that's what we often find. We're a port of call for people in difficulty. So I guess I just want to preface by saying I'll talk a little bit about adapting and surviving, and particularly around the surviving, because that's what I'm talking to a lot of people about at the moment. But I just want to start off by saying, look after yourselves and look after each other, look after your staff. Don't forget that the most important resource that you've got in your business is you, you as the entrepreneur, you as the owner. Look after yourself. It can be quite isolating, and when we're going through hard times, there's plenty of opportunity to push on and work hard. But I just want to remind everyone up front to get the help and support you need. If you're feeling isolated, reach out to others. If you're feeling blue, please do reach out for the support you need. Look, so talking about surviving, I talk personally to a lot of businesses that are in trouble, and you might know people who are. So the first step is take fast and documented action. Get on to people who, if you've got a bill coming, if you've got a problem with a landlord or a tenant, do get in contact with them, do get in contact with your bank. And if you're having problems, the Small Business Commission can help. We can help you guys out with mediating disputes, and particularly with landlords and tenants. And this is, we're hearing a lot of people in the hospitality industry going through this process at the moment. You can give us a call, and we can help broker that problem, particularly as there's a new code of conduct around how that works. Now, I'd also encourage anyone to pick up the phone and call Service New South Wales. Anthony did a great job explaining what they can do, but they can hook you up with the grants, they can hook you up with other services that can help you survive and thrive, build a little bit of capacity into your business to bounce back. And we hope people do bounce back. Now, one thing that's obvious is the world's never going to be the same again. People are changing. We can all see that. So I'd encourage you to reach out to get some advice, some business coaching, some business advice. New South Wales Government, if you don't know anyone, New South Wales Government has made available the Business Connect program. You can access that through Service New South Wales, and they can hook you up with a free business advisor if you're after some rapid advice to get your business back on track. So that's what I'd say is assess your business, look after yourselves, and do assess the help you need to start initiating your great ideas and getting your customers back.
I love what you said there, Ben, because I think so much of success in business does come down to communication and being proactive in communication rather than being reactive and letting things drag on. It's another one of my favorite sayings is there's no such thing as an unresourceful person, only unresourceful states. And the challenge when these sorts of crises come along is people can get into unresourceful states really, really quickly. And the challenge is seeing a little bit into the future in terms of, well, the light at the end of the tunnel. So let me throw back to Michael. What would you say is the light at the end of the tunnel for people in hospitality? Let me unmute you again, just a moment. There we go.
Thanks, Jeremy. I think the light at the end of the tunnel is an experience will tell us that we have survived a lot of other issues during our time, and we say that in the hotel industry in particular. You know, we survived 9/11, we survived SARS, we survived the GFC, and we will survive the pandemic. So I think historic data helps us with that. I think the difference with the pandemic is that we have seen tourism and hotels in particular pretty much come to a near standstill. So we're actually coming back from ground zero. But the interesting thing as well is it will be staged, and we're already hearing governments start to some of the narrative starting to change now. We're starting to talk about intrastate travel and travelling within our own states, and then we will see borders open, and we'll start to see Australians start moving around, and we'll have pent-up demand because we haven't travelled for so many months, and nor have we been overseas. So those people that would normally travel overseas will be looking to travel nationally, and so our domestic travel is, I think, will be our saviour. I think I know Tourism Australia have had it following the bushfires. The holiday home or holiday here this year is the slogan, and I think that's going to be a big push. So I think from the hotels perspective, we're really looking forward to that slowly easing of restrictions and seeing travel to start moving again. I think our first international border as well, as probably most people are thinking, will be New Zealand, and that'll be a good thing as well, where we'll be able to see New Zealanders come this way, but also Australians do a little bit of going that way as well. So I think there's some good light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, we do have one of the most magnificent countries in the world, and there's so much out there worth seeing. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm certainly getting a little bit of cabin fever being cooped up at home, and just can't wait to get back out to my local pub and hotel and to take the family for a weekend away in regional New South Wales, as we had planned and booked after the bushfire crisis before this thing came along. And one of the things I found is that the hospitality people I've spoken to have been very, very understanding in this. What can consumers do to help support people in hospitality, Michael?
Well, I think it is going to be a case of when these restrictions lift, that they are actually prepared and ready to actually go and spend some time in hotels and in regional areas. And those people living in regional areas come back to the cities as well and start actually consuming, really, spending in regional areas, staying in regional areas. And I think we will see a lot of that actually happen. And I think that is encouraging. I think from the pubs and restaurants perspective, I know restaurant and catering have put together a paper and gone to government with it. I know from the hotels perspective, pubs and accommodation, we've gone to government with ways and means and papers to suggest this is how we see the pathway going forward. Certainly, it is a new normal. We will be working with a very high level of hygiene across cafes, restaurants, pubs and accommodation to ensure that we, one, keep our staff safe, but two, ensure our customers are safe as well. And I think that's going to be the way forward.
Thank you. So Marian, I might throw to you. And one of the challenges that people have spoken to me about is they've had to stand a lot of staff down, and they're worried about when business comes back, are they actually going to be able to get these staff back, or how are they really going to bring people up the training curve quickly to deliver at the service level that they want or is needed?
Look, I think that's a bit likened to us with our students, because our students are your employees in many cases, and if they're not your current employees, they're your future employees. So, look, some will come. The reality is some will come and some will go and some will stay. So that's a given. We potentially will lose some people in the industry, but we've also got the amazing opportunity to gain people within the industry. We're a very transient industry, and that's just typical of our workforce, and we're a very high demand industry, and hopefully we'll remain as such to meet the needs of the future tourism sector. But I think during the down period, while again, looking at the two sides of it, where we have businesses, to Michael's point, where there are businesses that are open and there is downtime, we should look at training those staff, as I said, in those gap training, because when the business reopens, it's not going to look and feel the same. It's going to be different. And consumers' expectations, to your last question, will be somewhat different, because they will have different expectations, they'll have different experiences during this whole period of time, and therefore they want something different when they return. So I think we've got to be able to meet what the customer wants there. And I think that, I think for many businesses, they've got to get their digital literacy up there. They've got to be able to be up there on the cutting edge with the technology, with their creativity, with their innovation, in order to run their business more efficiently. And whether it's looking at new point of sale systems, whether it's looking at bringing in other sort of technologies into the business to make it more automated. At the moment where we have a degree of automation in our industry, we really want to look at making sure that when it does open or when it does grow, it's bigger and better than it was previously. So, I think for the moment where the businesses are open, we could release and work in collaboration with you, the employers and the small businesses and the large enterprises, to look at your training needs, and we can customize that to suit your needs. where you have been in the unfortunate position of having to let go some staff, we could reconnect with those staff employees as well and train them up. And there's lots of opportunities in a whole suite of courses in digital technology, marketing skills to help your overall business as a business owner, you know, to get you better prepared and better positioned to be able to compete as part of your recovery plan and to improve your fiscal position there, basically. But yeah, we look, at the end of the day, we are fortunate. We are the lucky country. We are in the lucky state. You know, we had a very big you know, market there in hospitality, and they will come back. People will eat. People will always drink. We're all itching to get out there into the sun again and have a drink and enjoy the entertainment and events and everything that comes with the industry that we love so much. So people will do that. They'll always treat themselves. It's just, you know, benchmarking the services we provide to the expectations of the customers, and they're potentially different to what they were.
Absolutely. And I love the points you made about being smarter digitally. If someone had to come to you in January, Marian, and said, listen, you're going to have 1 month to take all of your courses to online delivery, I'm sure you would have said, it's just not possible.
No, look, TAFE New South Wales has 1,200 courses, 1,200 products, 90,000 customers, you know, 120 sites, and as I said, 9,000 teachers. That is a mammoth task. Having said that, the staff have done an amazing job to shift to the demands of our customers and the needs of our customers. So you might like online learning and you might run with it. Someone else, Anthony, may not like it so much and may need a little bit more hand-holding, albeit safe distancing right now, but you might need a little bit more support along the way. And given the demographics of this region, particularly Western Sydney region, we've got a high population of Aboriginal students. We've got a high proportion of disadvantaged students. So the earlier wraparound service, I said that we offer amazing career counselling services for the students. We've got, you know, we've got disability support services. We've got Aboriginal support services, you know, learner support. So we'll be able to work with those students to achieve what it is they want to achieve. The other thing that's really worth calling out here is a lot of staff for you in your industry have the skills. They probably haven't got the piece of paper and they probably haven't got the formal qualification. So don't discount an RPL pathway. So a recognition of prior learning pathway. So for all those staff members who have that little bit of extra time and they're finished cleaning the car park, as you said, and they're finished bottling the beer and selling it out in the car park, they could help getting their resume and their evidence together, and they can formalise what they've learned in industry and help put that into a qualification for them to put in their own portfolio. That's really important because potentially they have a little bit more time to put those things together as an employee. And as an employer, you can also put some testimonials together for them as well. And we can work together to put that in. And then when you do open, or if now during the quiet time, we can come in and we can do work-based assessment. And we can work with you. And we don't need to simulate it anymore because we can work in your restaurants, in your hotels, in your cafes, and on your events, and we can train together and provide that recognition. But RPL is really, really opportunistic right now for individuals.
Thank you, Marian. David, what are some of the tourism trends that you're seeing across Blacktown and the adjacent LGAs at the moment? Let me just unmute you just a moment. There we go.
Okay, thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, we recently carried out a review service in council, and we identified some very interesting analytics in relation to tourism. Blacktown City mainly caters to the visiting friends and relatives market, which is an interesting niche market, and it's quite likely that adjacent councils to ours also have that trend. As you know, we're a growth council. We have a significant influx of migrants from abroad setting up house and home in Blacktown, and to meet close to their friends and relatives, they encourage them to in Australia. Now, The impact there is that we know that international travel has been curtailed for the time being and likely for inbound tourism into next year. So with that in mind, I think that hospitality and tourism businesses will need to rethink how they can redirect to probably the domestic market initially and see how they can promote their products and their services to a domestic market in terms of people visiting interstate instead of internationally. There's been some interesting developments going back to how businesses can change into new markets. Featherdale Wildlife Park, for example, have had to close like all the zoos around Australia. But what they've done is they've put in an online tour with their head gamekeeper. So you can actually go online to Featherdale and you can actually walk around with the gamekeeper telling you about what's going on in the park that day. So the other aspect that I think is important to be aware of is business travel. We've noticed that this has been quite patchy in our city. Some accommodation has closed, like some of the more the independent hotels have closed, but other ones that have a chain franchise have been able to maintain opening, like the Novotel in Rooter Hill is still open for business and still getting a throughput of business customers. So I think this is a time for the tourism industry to review where it's going over the next period of time, and to be aware of these structural changes that are occurring in, for example, the visiting friends and relatives market. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you, David. Was the audio breaking up for anybody else, or was it just on my end? Okay, fantastic, brilliant. So let's talk about some of the business success stories that we've seen out there in this what's a tough environment. Where have we seen businesses be able to pivot and make a go of things at the moment? Ben, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, great. So even though I do hear a lot of hard stories, I occasionally get some really fantastic success stories. So which often start with a problem. So I heard there was a business in Coffs Harbour. They were trying to create a new service, which was a delivery service, fine dining delivery for the local, sort of fill the gap left by all the closed restaurants. But what they found was that all of the delivery fees were very, very high. They didn't want to fork over all their money to the delivery companies, the online platforms. So they got together with a bunch of local restaurants. They formed a little co-op and created their own local town delivery service, employed some local unemployed people who'd been put off because of COVID, and cut out all of the delivery fees. So they said that they charge 3% delivery fees on all orders, and 2% of that goes back into a kitty, which goes to local good causes. So it's just a fantastic idea. They found by banding together, not only did they get a massive local market share, but also the delivery fees were so much less. They're actually making a margin and adapting and doing good things. So they within a week, went from a perspective where they thought they were going to have to close to suddenly they're doing absolutely cracking business. So it is fantastic to see people innovating, getting together, not trying to do it alone, but trying to work together to solve these problems.
Fantastic, thank you, Ben. And I want to put a question from one of the attendees here today, Vasily. He runs an amazing gymnastics centre in Sydney's Hills, and he wanted to ask the panel, what would be a key selling point addressed to customers to bring them back to gymnastics after the pandemic's over? It's interesting because once customers are trained in not doing something, how do we get them back?
I think in the space of being active, you probably have the upper hand there, because the one thing I think in a positive out of COVID is just walking down the street, how many families you see out and about being active. The bike sales are up, the parks, people are exercising. So I don't think it would be too much of a hard sell to push the angle and the pitch of continuing the momentum into the gymnastics. And if you thought you'd master the art of walking and bike riding and all the exercises you did during the period of COVID, you can extend that into a more technical skill of gymnastics post-COVID. That's probably, fitness is probably one area where people, whilst it has closed, they've been innovative in still achieving that objective. So I think that's a very positive avenue to continue with.
I think one of the things that I've seen is that this crisis has caused businesses to look very carefully at all of their operations and all of their suppliers. And, you know, we've got another question here about how would I increase awareness and educate managers of hospitality venues of the benefits of professional cleaning services? And let me put that to the panel. What would your thoughts be on that?
Jeremy, if I can jump in there, I think there's, with a lot of particularly hotels and businesses that are closed, and I think I made mention before, you know, the new normal is very much that customers are going to have very high expectation of hygiene and cleanliness within tomorrow's businesses when they reopen. And so I think for someone that's in a cleaning business and doing deep cleaning, then this is an opportunity for them to be actually, it's probably, you know, when you talk about advertising, there's probably some good value in advertising or working in conjunction with restaurant and catering associations or even associations like ourselves, and actually finding ways and means to getting out to those businesses to say that we offer these services. So make sure you're ready, prepared and clean for tomorrow's customer.
The interesting thing, Michael, thank you for that I've seen in many businesses is they see the doom and gloom out there in the industry and they think it obviously has to apply to their business as well. And they don't see the silver lining in the cloud, so to speak. But it's a case of getting out there and really engaging with the customers and asking, what are your problems right now and how can we help you? Now, Anthony, I want to throw back to you because Service New South Wales is, for me, an example of a business that's completely reinvented itself. I remember what the old armoured RTA offices used to be like, attempting to communicate with people through an inch of bulletproof glass. And then I walked into the first of the Service New South Wales offices to be greeted in the first 15 seconds by someone saying, how can I help you? And I almost fell over. And I believe you've extended that concept now to business through a business concierge. Can you talk a bit about that?
Absolutely. So for those of you who have not come across the business concierge service, this is a free service that the state government has put together along with the Small Business Commissioner's Office and Service New South Wales. This is a free service for all small businesses that are wanting to start, grow, develop. We provide them with a lot of guidance. We have a one-on-one concierge service. And as you can see from the page there, you can book a call for a business concierge to basically call back and to understand what the needs are for that business owner, and also provide them with a lot of how-to guides on our page. So one of the things that we want to do there is to make sure that the customers are quite comfortable in finding out all the answers rather than going out on their own and searching for information. Want to make it easier for them rather than get lost in the whole process. And as Michael and all mentioned previously, this is going to be an evolving scenario for especially the hospitality industry. And one of the main industry sectors that Service New South Wales started in the Making Easy to Do Business program was the cafe, restaurants and small bars. And we know now that the businesses are evolving, the way they are interacting with their customers, the way they are distributing things are changing. And that is where Service New South Wales will be able to then make sure that they have the right licenses to do those things, the right training or whatever they need to be able to operate in the new environment. So the service that we currently offer, like it's a one-on-one service, it's a free service, and is a dedicated business concierge service. What that means is that once a case is created and a customer is contacted by a business concierge, it'll be the same business concierge who that customer will talk to. So they don't have to be ringing a 1-800 number or anything else. They will always be calling that particular customer, the business concierge, and they we can ask, and they will be speaking to them. So it's more of a one-on-one service. As you mentioned, Jeremy, when you went to a service center, you were met with one person, and till the end of your, I suppose, what you had to do, you had the same person with you. And that's a similar concept that the Easy to Do Business or Making Business Easier program will have, that customer will have that customer satisfaction of having dealt with one person right through the whole journey.
That's fantastic. And I think it's worthwhile keeping in mind for all businesses that we get so tied up in the service we want to deliver, and we forget about really what it is that our customers most want, and how do we provide that to them so that they can have that service on demand. And we, as an organisation, we can leverage technology and deliver that in a efficient way.
And that's what the business concierge will do, is actually talk to the customer or the business owner and find out what do they really need, see the big picture, rather than let them work in silos and then finding out, oh, I have to do this, I have to do this. And then that actually stretches the time that it will take for the business owner to actually open the doors. And so the business concierge will see the big picture, understand what do they really want to do in total, and then provide them with a dashboard. In the case of the cafe, restaurant, small bar sector, they can actually look at that dashboard and see what things they have to do, what are outstanding, what they've done, and get the doors open quicker.
Fantastic, thank you. David, I believe you've got something to add.
This question in terms of gymnastics, his gymnastic business. If I go back to my markets, one opportunity that he could consider is to develop an online membership for people who want to train at home. There's a local gym clinic near where I live, and because they've had to close, they basically opened up a complete online service for their members. And through a simple password process, people can then log on either to a group training program or to individual training that suits their own lifestyle, a time that is convenient to them, and not having to go into the gym. They don't have to travel. So it's probably about thinking outside the square and seeing these opportunities that capitalize on technology and the fact that people have been forced to stay at home. And as you said earlier, changing behavior for humans is hard to do.
It's and I think that's there's no shortage of excuses, and in small business it's easy to say, listen, I don't have enough time. So I wanted to draw everyone's attention to some of the amazing incentives and support that's been rolled out by both the federal government and the state government. And if you haven't taken advantage of these already, one of the bits of great news is they've actually extended the deadline for the JobKeeper payment subsidy. It was originally 30th of April, but they've pushed that back a bit. Anthony, you mentioned a $1,000 cash grant, did you as well?
Sorry, what is that? $1,000? No, $10,000 the grant for the businesses that have been affected. That's $10,000.
Absolutely, that's a recent grant that's been pushed out. So if your business has really suffered significantly, that is close to a shutdown in terms of gyms and cafes and things like that, that's an absolute grant worth getting.
If the businesses have a decline of 75% of turnover compared to the same 2-week period in 2019, they are eligible to apply for the $10,000 grant, and that is via Service New South Wales webpage.
Absolutely, thank you. And I encourage business owners as well to make sure they stay in close contact with their accountant right now, because this is a very rapidly changing space. There's new incentives coming out almost every day. And in small business sometimes, or we can be a little bit challenged around making the time to take advantage of these. And accountants can definitely be our best friend in making this happen. Ben, what are some of your thoughts in terms of these assistance packages?
Yeah, so we saw throughout the bushfires as well, people weren't aware of these packages, but Service New South Wales, the best thing they do, and the thing I love about Service New South Wales, they really put the customer at the heart of everything they do. When they design these packages, they make them as easy as possible to apply for, while obviously making it sensible safeguards to make sure we're not all applying for 2 at a time or anything like that. So I'd say do get in as quick as you can, apply when you can, and do, as you say, I've come across quite a few people who are in that paralysis stage. They don't have the time, they don't have the capacity, or they're a bit worried. I'd just say get on, give them a call, see what they can do to help you. And if all else fails, you can contact the Western Sydney Enterprise Centre. This is the business centre out at Penrith. You can contact Service New South Wales. They can refer you to a business advisor who can help you with the application process if you're really stuck.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ben. David, how can council help? What's council's role in economic development in this?
My main role really is facilitation. I put people together. I'm very similar to Ben and Anthony in the role that we as the third tier of government are. I wouldn't say I'm an advisor. I'm there really to listen and to respond to the needs of our local community. So we have nearly 24,000 businesses in Blacktown City. We're the 4th largest council in Australia. So we have a wide and diverse network of businesses. The majority of our businesses, over 90% in fact, are micro business, sole traders, businesses with less than 4 employees. So what we're trying to do is to really connect with businesses in activities such as this webinar. In fact, that was part of the stimulation when you and I got together with our business training program that started in January, just before the pandemic started. We started to think, how can we help businesses during these very difficult times? And so, for example, we've been looking at web directories. Spot Parking has worked with the City of Parramatta to develop an interactive online business directory with a map to identify those small businesses that are still operating, whether it's a takeaway cafe, whether you're a real estate business, whether you're an accountant, and to let people know that you're still there, where you are. And in the case of Parramatta, they've been revising their parking restrictions to assist people who want to pick up a takeaway coffee to park outside that cafe without being fined for parking. So I see that really as the role of our council, is to identify the opportunities. And that's a good example, in fact, where we're a bit resource poor at the moment at council. So we've been collaborating with a couple of associations in Blacktown to see if we can get a local business directory off the ground. But Sue Lawrence, the president of the Riverstone Chamber, just told me this morning, we had a lengthy discussion, that the Rouse Hill Times, their Facebook page, has advertised a directory that is being promoted across Sydney now, of businesses that want to promote their business online through a central map directory. So if anyone's interested in that, if you go to the Rouse Hill Times Facebook page, it was just posted about a couple of hours ago. So if a business is interested in registering to go online through that service, then it's free, and it's a promotion through the Daily Telegraph, which is the sister paper to the Rouse Hill Times. So I'll leave it there. We're here to facilitate and to assist business in these difficult times.
Thank you. So I've got a question from Glenn of Retro Music, and he's asking, are we expected to reduce our rate card as the markets are slow and the cheap products tend to be the ones going right now? So how do we, is it important that we meet the market at this current time?
I was going to say, Jeremy, from again, from the hotel industry's perspective, we're constantly dealing with events, and which involves event managers and audio visual and what have you. And I think there is going to be a need for people to look at their rates as the market is different. And so I think hotels will be looking at their rates. We know there's not going to be any international travel for some time yet, certainly not this year. So when we are looking at intrastate and interstate travel, then we'll be looking at our pricing structures. And I think that probably goes a little bit across the board. I don't believe there's a need for us to necessarily discount to the extent where we're not selling our products for what their value is. But I don't think there's an opportunity for us either. We're not in a market where it's a buoyant market. So realistically, I think we've got to meet the market and be sensible. And I suppose read it fairly quickly so that we don't damage reputation or for that matter, leave any money on the table. So it's a bit of a difficult time for it, I have to say.
And thinking outside the box is another critical thing to do. I saw an initiative recently about buying a beer for your local. So if you go online and you buy a beer today, then when your local reopens, they'll actually give you two when you come in there. So thinking outside the box in terms of how do we get pre-bookings, because people are wanting that brightness of future around how do we get back out and get re-engaged. I want to share with everyone on the call today one more slide. And there's 8 very, very powerful words that very often business owners don't use enough. And those words are, I was wondering if you could help me. And it's amazing what happens when you reach out and you build a support network of either other business owners or lean on some of the organisations there, like the Small Business Commissioner, like Service New South Wales, who are there to specifically help and guide. And I've got to commend how fast this federal and state government have really got behind and put these resources out there to support local business owners. So we're approaching the end of the meeting today, and I want to take a moment to really acknowledge and thank all of the panelists for sharing your time and wisdom with us today. I think it was a fantastic webinar. We covered a bit of ground, and it's just terrific to know that there is that level of help and support out there, and thank you all today.
Thanks, Jeremy, and thanks, David, and the rest of the councils for accessing.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thanks, David.
And if I can just ask everyone on the call today, if you could take 2 minutes to click the link in the chat box for the survey, and it gives you the opportunity to ask an additional question of one of the panelists if you like, and to provide some feedback, not only on how we did, but what sort of other events you would like to see in the future. This, of course, is the first of 4 webinars. We have this one's hospitality, and this evening we're doing retail, followed by tomorrow is manufacturing, and last but not least is professional services. So thank you also to all the attendees for coming on the call today, and look forward to seeing you again in the future.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Bye. Stay safe.
Bye.